Over time, as Rome's religious system grew more elaborate, the college's role remained crucial in bridging human affairs with divine will. Mount Ida holds a prominent place in ancient mysticism, mythology, and religious tradition, especially within the cultural landscape of both Crete and the Troad region of Anatolia, where two different mountains shared the same name. Each had its own rich mythological associations with spiritual significance. In Crete, Mount Ida was considered the most sacred mountain of the island and was deeply woven into the mythos of the earliest Greek traditions. It was believed to be the birthplace, or at least the secret childhood home of the god Zeus. According to legend, Rhea, the mother of Zeus, hid him in a cave on Mount Ida to protect him from being devoured by his father, Kronos. In that cave, Zeus was nursed by the divine goat, Amalthea, while a group of armed dancers known as the Curetes clashed their weapons to drown out the infant's cries. The mountain thus became a place associated with concealment, initiation, and divine protection, giving it a mystical status in the minds of ancient worshippers. The cave on Mount Ida in Crete became a sacred site for pilgrimage, initiation rites, and mystery traditions. It was associated not only with the divine infancy of Zeus, but also with later Orphic and Dionysian rites. These mystery schools often viewed the cave and the mountain itself as symbolic representations of the womb of the cosmos, a point of origin and regeneration, making it a spiritually potent location for initiates seeking transformation and divine contact. In the Troad region of Anatolia, another Mount Ida stood near ancient Troy. This version of Mount Ida was sacred to several deities and figures prominently in Homeric and post-Homeric myth. It was considered the dwelling place of the gods during the Trojan War, a seat from which they observed the affairs of mortals. The mountain was also sacred to Cybele, the Magnamator, or Great Mother, whose cult was deeply entrenched in the Phrygian and Anatolian landscapes. The wilderness of the mountain, it's associated with untamed nature and the connection to the Mother Goddess, tied to the rites of fertility, ecstatic worship, and the cosmic renewal. In mystical terms, Mount Ida represented more than a physical location. It stood as a symbolic axis, a link between the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Its caves, peaks, and secret groves became metaphors for the hidden places of divine knowledge and transformation. To be initiated on or near Mount Ida was to enter into a sacred relationship with the ancient power of birth, protection, and revelation. Over time, mystics, philosophers, and poets continued to draw upon the imagery of Mount Ida in their spiritual and esoteric writings. The mountain became a literary and philosophical archetype representing the hidden maternal source of wisdom and power in the universe. Whether as a cradle of Zeus or the sacred space of the Great Mother, Mount Ida's mystical aura endured long after the official cults disappeared, leaving a lasting imprint on the Western imagination. Mount Ida, in its sacred geography, refers to two different but equally revered mountains in the ancient world, one in Phrygia, in western Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey, and another in Crete. Both mountains became central to religious mythologies, but the Phrygian mountain Ida is the one most commonly associated with the Magna Mater, or Cybele, and with the title Idaean. The Phrygian Mount Ida rises near the ancient city of Troy. And it was venerated as a liminal place between the human and divine. It is described in myth and cult as covered with dense forest, hidden caverns, and teeming with wildlife. This geography gave it a mystical character. In myths, such landscapes were often portals to the divine, or place where divine presence was most strongly felt. In the case of Cybele, the mountains symbolized her domain, wild, fertile, dangerous, and untamed. Her priests, the Galli, would reenact her myths in rites that mirrored the mountain's rawness. Bloodletting, music, dance, and trance were all meant to align the human body with the rhythms of the natural world. On this mountain, caves were believed to be entrances to deeper mysteries, echoing with the divine voice of the goddess. These caves often served as sites for ritual initiation, prophecy, or ecstatic experience. The sound of drums and cymbals would reverberate off the rocks, enhancing the sensory experience of her ceremonies. The lion, her frequent animal companion and symbolic guardian, was drawn from the actual fauna of the Anatolian landscape, further rooting her in the land. A high altitude, approximately to the sky, the natural seclusion of Mount Ida made it a favored place for divine births, vision, and transformation. The story of Attis, who castrated himself under a pine tree on the mountain, is part of this sacred landscape. The pine tree itself was sacred and grew along the mountain slopes, Its resin and evergreen character symbolized death and rebirth, fitting the seasonal myths of Cybele and Attis. In the Roman world, even though the actual rituals were transplanted to new cities and temples, the idea of Mount Ida remains symbolically powerful. The stone believed to embody the goddess, brought to Rome from Pessinus in Phrygia, was referred to as coming from the Idaean mother, emphasizing its origin in this sacred geography. The Idaean identity preserved the spiritual authority and raw chthonic energy of the Anatolian wilderness, even when transplanted into urban imperial contexts. The Sibylline books and the Sibylline oracles are not the same, although they share a similar name and prophetic theme. They differ in origin, purpose, context, and cultural context, or content and cultural context. The Sibylline books were a set of prophetic writings kept by the ancient Romans. According to traditions, these books were acquired by King Tarquinius Superbus, the last king of Rome, from a mysterious woman believed to be the Cumaean Sibyl. She originally offered 9 books, like I said before, for a steep price, and when he refused, she burned 3. She repeated this until he accepted the final 3 at the original price. Now, these books, written in Greek hexameter, were stored in the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill and guarded by a group of priests known as the Quindecima Viri, which I've already covered. Now, they were not made public and were only consulted in times of crisis, such as plagues or wars. Now, the priest would interpret specific passages thought to contain divine guidance for resolving the situation. Again, the original books were lost in a fire in 83 BCE, and Roman authorities later tried to reconstruct them using similar writings gathered from across the empire. Now, the Sibylline oracles